My best friend stole the guy I liked, crushed my soul, built her happiness on my heartbreak, and then I watched it all burn down, piece by piece, until she had nothing left but the ashes of her own making. It was the best thing that ever happened. To me. Back then, in the hazy, hopeful mess of late adolescence transitioning into early adulthood, I was navigating the confusing waters of liking someone who seemed to like me back. His name was Ethan. He wasn't a knight in shining armor, but he was kind, funny, and made me feel seen in a way that was new and exciting. We spent hours talking, laughing, sharing quiet moments that felt charged with possibility. We weren't officially together. That label felt heavy, and maybe a little scary at 18. But everyone around us, including me, felt the pull, the undeniable energy between us. I was happy. Tentatively. Wonderfully happy. My best friend at the time was Veronica. She was a force. Beautiful, loud, incredibly charismatic when she wanted to be. People gravitated towards her, drawn by her confidence and quick wit. I admired her, maybe even a little enviously. We'd been friends since middle school, sharing secrets, dreams, and embarrassing moments. I trusted her implicitly. She was the first person I told about Ethan, spilling out all the butterflies and nervous excitement over cheap coffee. "Oh, Ethan," she'd said, her eyes sparkling. "Yeah, he's cute. Met him a few times with you guys. Nice." Her reaction seemed innocent enough. Then, I had no idea the wheels were already turning in her head, calculating, planning. Before we dive in, if you're ready to hear how everything unfolded and justice was served, please take just a moment to hit that like button below. It truly helps support the channel. We started hanging out more, the three of us. Group dates, parties, just lounging around. I wanted my two favorite people to get along, to mesh into my life seamlessly. Veronica was great at inserting herself. She'd laugh louder at Ethan's jokes than I did, touch his arm casually when she spoke, make sure she was always in his line of sight. At first, I didn't think anything of it. That was just Veronica. Vibrant, engaging. Then the subtle shifts started. Small comments, delivered with a smile, that chipped away at my confidence. If I wore a new dress, she'd say, "That's interesting, Jenny. Very you." The implication hanging heavy in the air. And you isn't exactly great. If I talked about a class I was struggling with, she'd chime in, "Oh, that was easy for me. Are you sure you're reading the right textbook?" Never outright cruel, just underhanded, designed to make me feel slightly less than, slightly incompetent. And she wasn't just doing it to me. I started noticing how she spoke about me to Ethan. "Jen's so sensitive, isn't she?" she'd say, eyes wide with mock concern, usually after I'd reacted normally to something slightly upsetting. "You have to be careful what you say around her." Or, "Jenny worries so much. I keep telling her to just relax and have fun, like we do." It wasn't just the words. It was the look she'd share with Ethan after, a conspiratorial glance that subtly positioned them as the normal, fun ones, and me as the fragile, overly complicated one. My heart would sink a little each time, a cold pebble dropping into my stomach. I'd laugh it off, play along, because calling out your best friend for being vaguely insulting feels petty, right? Especially when she frames it as just teasing, or looking out for you. Ethan, bless his oblivious heart, didn't seem to notice the undercurrents. Or maybe he did, and chose to ignore them. He'd just nod, or offer a conciliatory smile my way. He never defended me, never pushed back against Veronica's narrative. That hurt too, a quiet, creeping disappointment. Was he starting to see me the way she portrayed me? Was he starting to prefer her version of reality? The belittlement intensified. It became clearer that Veronica wasn't just trying to edge me out. She was actively trying to replace me. She'd arrange hangouts with Ethan without telling me until the last minute. "Oh, I thought I told you." She'd talk about shared jokes or experiences I wasn't part of. She was building a world with him that I was increasingly outside of. I confronted her once, timidly. "Hey, Veronica." I'd started, my voice shaky. "I feel like you've been spending a lot of time with Ethan, just the two of you. And some of the things you say—" She cut me off, her face shifting instantly from friendly to wounded. "Oh, my God, Jenny, are you serious? Are you getting jealous? We're just friends. You're being ridiculous. I can't believe you would even think that about me. After everything." She made me feel like the villain, the insecure, paranoid friend who couldn't handle her bestie having other friends. I backtracked immediately, apologizing, hating myself for bringing it up, hating myself more for believing her performance. The end was swift and brutal, like ripping off a Band-Aid that had been stuck for too long. I called Ethan, suggesting, "We finally go on a proper official date, just the two of us." He was hesitant. Jenny, I need to tell you something." My heart started pounding. "Okay?" "Veronica and we're kind of seeing each other now." The world tilted. Kind of? Seeing each other? My best friend? The guy I thought— "What?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Yeah, it just happened. We connected on a different level, you know? It wasn't really working out between us." "Was it?" "Us?" There was no us because she had dismantled it brick by brick. And not really working out? We hadn't even had a chance to truly start. "She told me," he continued, proving Veronica's insidious work, "that you were maybe looking for something more serious than I was ready for, and that you were really emotional about things, and she and I are just easier." Easier. That word stung more than anything. I was emotional, difficult, while Veronica was easy. Her narrative had won. I don't remember much of the rest of the conversation. I mumbled something about needing to go and hung up before I started sobbing. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not just the loss of Ethan, but the shattering of my trust in Veronica. My best friend. The person I had shared everything with had systematically torn me down and taken something precious from me. The belittlement hadn't just been casual meanness. It had been strategic. Every barbed comment, every insinuation about my character, had been a tool to drive a wedge between me and Ethan and elevate herself. The days and weeks that followed were a blur of pain and humiliation. I isolated myself, unable to face mutual friends, or even just walk the streets without the fear of seeing them together. Every rumor that trickled back to me felt like another stab. Veronica and Ethan were a couple now, loud and public about it. Hearing about them together felt like rubbing salt in a raw wound. Their relationship, however, quickly became the talk of the town, but not in a good way. It was dramatic, volatile, and messy. I heard about their explosive fights in public, their constant breakups and makeups, the jealousy, the passive aggression that apparently wasn't just reserved for me. Veronica's toxic nature didn't magically disappear just because she got what she wanted. In fact, without an external target like me, it seemed to turn inward, making their dynamic a constant battleground. Friends who were still in touch with both of them would share stories, shaking their heads. "They're miserable, Jen," one friend confided, looking genuinely concerned. "Veronica's impossible, always picking fights, accusing him of things, and Ethan just looks exhausted all the time." Part of me, the hurt, angry part, felt a grim satisfaction. Hearing this. Good. Let them suffer. Let them see what her easy nature really was. But mostly, I was still just sad. Sad for what I'd lost. Sad for the friendship that was a lie. Sad for the way I'd been made to feel about myself. Their misery didn't heal mine. This period of despair lasted longer than I'd like to admit. I wallowed. I questioned everything about myself. Was I too emotional? Too sensitive? Was I fundamentally unlovable or just difficult to be with? Veronica's words had burrowed deep, planting seeds of doubt that felt impossible to uproot. The humiliation of being so thoroughly outplayed by someone I trusted ate away at me. But eventually, the pain started to feel heavy, a weight I was tired of carrying. I looked at myself in the mirror one day and didn't recognize the sad, defeated person staring back. This wasn't who I was supposed to be. Veronica had taken Ethan. She had tried to take my self-worth, but I realized she could only succeed in the latter if I let her. It was a conscious decision to start fighting back, not against Veronica directly, but for myself. I unfollowed them on social media, blocked their numbers. I sought out friends who lifted me up, who reminded me of my strengths, who listened without judgment. I threw myself into my studies, finding a new focus and sense of accomplishment. I started exercising, eating better, taking care of my physical self, which in turn started healing my emotional self. I decided to leave town for college. It felt like a necessary escape, a chance to build a life free from the ghosts of my past and the constant possibility of running into them. Starting over in a new city was hard, but it was also liberating. I made new friends who knew nothing about the emotional, sensitive Jenna Veronica had painted. I could just be me, curious, determined, sometimes silly, sometimes serious. I studied finance, a field that required sharp focus, attention to detail, and a thick skin, qualities I realized I possessed, despite Veronica's attempts to convince me otherwise. Over the next few years, I thrived. I landed a great internship, then a solid job after graduation. I built a network of colleagues and friends who respected me. I learned to trust people again, cautiously, but with open eyes, recognizing red flags I would have missed before. I even started dating again, and this time, I knew what I wanted and deserved. I was in a healthy, supportive relationship with someone who saw me for who I was, not a distorted version. Meanwhile, through the infrequent whispers that made their way back to me from my old hometown, or a rare, unavoidable glimpse online, I knew Veronica and Ethan were still together, still locked in their miserable dance. Their relationship hadn't matured or found stability. It had seemingly devolved further. Stories of infidelity on Veronica's part, of Ethan losing his job, of them struggling financially, of constant bickering, filtered through. They were trapped in a cycle of their own making. Their easier life looked exhausting and profoundly unhappy. I didn't actively seek out information about them, but sometimes it just appeared. And increasingly, I felt less pain and more detachment. Their drama felt distant, like a poorly written reality show I had thankfully been voted off of. Then came the part that felt like fate, or maybe just the inevitable consequence of living, a life built on manipulation and cutting corners. Veronica, from what I understood, had gotten into some kind of online business, selling high-end goods, or maybe offering exclusive services. From the snippets I heard, it sounded typical. Veronica. Flashy, promising the world, probably exaggerating her credentials or the value of what she offered. Ethan was somehow involved too, helping her manage things, or maybe just lending her money. Through my work in finance, I'd become acutely aware of warning signs for various types of financial misconduct: inflated claims, shady contracts, high-pressure sales tactics, inconsistent bookkeeping. I wasn't looking for Veronica's business, but one day, a vague complaint about a local online seller popped up in a professional forum I was part of. Something about non-delivery after payment, misleading descriptions. The name of the business wasn't mentioned, but the description of the service sounded eerily familiar based on what I'd heard about Veronica's new venture. A few weeks later, a more specific complaint appeared, this time on a public consumer watchdog site. It detailed a transaction with a business run by Veronica H. The details matched exactly what I knew. Multiple customers were posting similar experiences. Products not as described, services not rendered, difficulty getting refunds, aggressive pushback from the seller when challenged. It wasn't high-level fraud, but it was clearly unethical, potentially illegal small-scale deception targeting multiple people. Reading those complaints, something shifted inside me. It wasn't just about me anymore. This was Veronica doing what she always did, taking advantage of people, building something on false promises. And she was doing it openly now, leaving a digital trail. I didn't have to lift a finger to create evidence. Veronica was creating it herself with every unhappy customer. But I knew how to make that evidence visible to the people who could act on it. I knew which regulatory bodies handled consumer fraud complaints, which journalists specialized in exposing local scams, which online forums consumer class actions often started in. I compiled everything I could find publicly: the watchdog complaints, screenshots of her misleading ads, easily found with a quick search, any public business registrations that seemed inconsistent. I packaged it all neatly, referencing specific regulations Veronica was likely violating. I wrote a detailed anonymous tip, outlining the pattern of behavior and pointing towards the collected evidence. I sent it not to one place, but to several: the State Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division, a prominent local news station's investigative team known for tackling scams, and a major online forum where affected customers were congregating. I didn't sign it. I didn't include any personal details. It wasn't about me getting revenge on Veronica in a way that would trace back to me. It was about unleashing the karma she had been building for years, simply by providing the right catalyst to ensure her actions had consequences. I was just facilitating. The results were swift and dramatic, far more than I had even anticipated. The news station picked it up first. They ran an expose detailing the numerous complaints, showing screenshots of the misleading ads, even interviewing a couple of angry customers who had been ripped off. They tried to confront Veronica on camera, and she reacted with her usual defensive, aggressive charm, which came across as utterly unconvincing and suspicious to viewers. Once the news story aired, the floodgates opened. More customers came forward. The Attorney General's office announced an investigation. Lawsuits were filed. Social media exploded with warnings about her business. Veronica's online reputation, which she had crafted so carefully over the years, was utterly decimated, not just by this scandal, but by years of people finally having a place to voice their negative experiences with her personality and previous shady dealings. Ethan was caught in the crossfire. Some reports mentioned his involvement. Others just cited him as her partner or co-owner. He was publicly associated with the failure and the fraud. Their dramatic relationship reached its predictable, explosive conclusion amidst the legal pressure, financial ruin, and public shame. I heard through the grapevine that he finally walked away, having lost whatever he had invested and utterly burned out by the chaos. I watched it unfold from a distance, reading the news articles, seeing the public outcry online. It wasn't the triumphant, fist-pumping revenge I might have fantasized about during my darkest days. It was quieter, more profound. It was the satisfying click of cause and effect. Veronica's nature, her dishonesty, her manipulation, her disregard, for others, had finally caught up with her in a very public, very costly way. The foundation of lies she built collapsed under the weight of documented truth. There was a sense of justice, certainly. But more than that, there was peace. The constant, low-level hum of pain and resentment I had carried for years finally faded. Seeing her face consequences, seeing her carefully constructed facade shatter, removed the power she had held over me. Her success, built on my heartbreak, hadn't lasted. My success, built on resilience and hard work, was solid. Today, years later, I am genuinely, unequivocally happy. I have a fulfilling career, a loving partner, wonderful friends, and a deep sense of self-worth that no one can ever take away from me. I don't think about Veronica or Ethan often. They are footnotes in the story of how I became who I am. Looking back, I can see the entire painful episode as a brutal, necessary turning point. Losing Ethan, while it hurt, meant I didn't end up in a relationship that started with deceit and was with someone who couldn't see through manipulation. Losing Veronica, while devastating at the time, freed me from a toxic friendship that was slowly eroding my soul. The belittlement, while it planted doubts, ultimately forced me to find my own strength and prove her wrong. So yes, my friend stole the guy I liked, broke my heart, and tried to destroy my confidence. And then her world fell apart because of her own actions, accelerated by my quiet push. And I am so incredibly, profoundly happy that it all happened exactly the way it did. Because it led me here, to a life built on truth, resilience, and genuine happiness. A life she could never touch.